Now, in the interest of time, we will move on to the second issue. And this is an issue which I think worries both of us. As we say, empires and great powers fall because they rot from within instead of challenges from without. And that is the new nonstop drama in the US consequences. Glenn, we have 15 minutes each for the next two topics, so let's shoot.
Oh gosh, passing it to me. I will attempt to be not just nonpartisan, but impartial. I mean, if this is impartiality is impossible, because if one takes a perspective, which one must do in order to perceive anything, then by definition one has a certain bias. But we'll get we'll go beyond that consideration for the moment. So we've all observed the chaos and the struggle that the Republicans are having, their inability to select an electable Speaker of the Republican representative to become Speaker of the House, because the Republicans have a majority in Congress. And so they can either stop anyone from becoming the Speaker or select the Speaker. So far, they can only stop people they don't like and can't find anyone that they agree on enough to do so. And that
they have found someone now. They have elected someone finally.
They've elected a nominee. We'll see what happens in the vote today. Maybe yes, they have. Yeah. But the nominee they found, and the previous ones, and the party as a whole, the party being the Republican Party, continues, frankly, to do something which should alarm everybody, not just opponents of Republicans. They deny the legitimacy of the 2020 presidential election, therefore the legitimacy of the United States government and its head, President Biden. It also implies, and I use the following word carefully, that the Republican Party has become, by just about every aspect of the definition, a fascist party, an anti-democratic, a totalitarian party. What does that mean? It's not just, I'm not slinging it as an epithet. Fascists say that only the leader, believe that only the leader can represent the people directly, because all of the institutions of government are, by definition, corrupt, and have also been corrupted by elites that act against the interests of the people.
You mean good old wasps like you with 9 ancestors in the Mayflower?
Is evil. The establishment is evil by definition. The elites are evil. Institutions are take away your freedom. That's the belief of, that's what fascists believe, as well as exalting, often based upon blood, the near holy nature of the state and the people, the two being indissociable. We've seen elements of this with the ardent, pro-conservative Christian elements to the now dominant ruling elements of the Republican Party. And with respect to immigration, because you don't want people who don't look like me. I look okay. It's just that I've been polluted in the brain from their perspective, coming to America or being accepted as American. And these are profoundly disturbing implications for the stability of American society and the functioning of American institutions, which means of American democracy. It's not just the crisis of the moment to find a speaker, but the party continues to support, it appears, wholeheartedly, and because it's obliged to, lest its members suffer, a candidate who has, by my last count, 91 indictments, the real one being treason, which is trying to overthrow the democratic functions of the state, to install himself as a leader. That's the implication of this otherwise farcical drama, theater, tragicomedy, of the Republicans' inability to choose an electable speaker. It is profoundly alarming. The implications internationally, and then I'll stop, Atul. Well, we've all heard that only Congress has the power of the purse, is the expression. The House of Representatives votes funding for the government. The president cannot do it. The Senate cannot do it. Only the House. The others must ratify, but the House does that. And since you have no House, because you have no speaker, in about 30 days, the federal budget will cease being funded, which has obviously dramatic implications. But in international relations, that means that there will be no further aid to Ukraine, no further assistance to Israel, no ability for the United States, independent of Ukraine or Israel, to project its force or conduct its diplomacy, have trade, reach trade agreements, or to enforce them, administer them. And what everyone thinks of the fraying, if not erstwhile, Pax Americana, entropy is disorder, growing disorder, and that's not good for anybody. A world ruled by our next topic of conversation, Xi Jinping and totalitarian China, would be far preferable to chaos of no one with his hand at the tiller, like the great helmsman from China should have it. So this drama in the House of Representatives is profoundly disturbing.
So to that point, I think let's look at also what this means for democracy. Because one of the things that Glenn and I did in our podcast, The Dialectic, which we use to shine the light on the most important issues as we see it in the world, and your ideas are welcome, was the fraying of democracy worldwide. If you look at Israel, a completely different democracy with proportional representation, with a coalition government, the problem has been that fringe parties and far-right parties have become more and more powerful, and they dictate the political agenda, and governments are unstable. Part of the reason Israelis were caught with their pants down is because the politicians were too busy just cobbling together coalitions which fell. And part of the reason was also the judicial reforms that Bibi Netanyahu pushed through, which led to 10,000 Israeli Defense Forces reservists to threaten to go on strike. And mind you that their signals intelligence, a lot of their electronic work is done by reservists. So the state itself was not exactly functional. Now, if you look at the US, in the US, you don't have a proportional representation. It's first past the post system, meaning anyone who gets a majority of even one vote, actually not even, you have the electoral college system. So you've got the first past the post and the electoral college system. So that means that you can get a minority of votes, as George W. Bush did, and then Donald Trump did, and then still be president. So here, there is another problem, that the primaries, the political parties, have the money and have the mass appeal, and you've got to fight to be the nominee of the political party, which means that you've got to play for a very small audience, a small echo chamber. And that means that you've got to sound more and more extreme, because this echo chamber has got more extreme. And once you win the primary, then in some constituencies, you're a shoo-in, because if you're in Texas, it's a red seat. All you have to do is win a primary. If you're in Baltimore, you're in a blue city, all you have to do is win the Democratic primary. So you have one-party statelets now all across America. And you don't have real functioning democracy for another reason as well. Big money in politics is now emblematic of America. And there are congressmen spending 60 to 70% and more time fundraising. The job of the Congress is to draft laws, not to go around and raise money. So you have dysfunction in American democracy because of different reasons, but it's still dysfunctional. And there is more friction between the executive and the legislature, which is why we'll probably see a government shutdown. The House doesn't even have a speaker, which means that the will of the people is not represented, and society itself has become fragmented, because democracy needs a delicate balance. It needs a diversity of ideas and a contention of principles, but it also needs a commonality of identity and a unity of purpose, that there has to be an overarching national idea or a myth. There has to be a story that people buy into. There has to be some sort of politics as in politicking, not politics as in how to live together and how to write the social contract and define rights and responsibilities. But politicking stopping at the shore. I'll stop, Glenn, please.
That's profoundly important, the point you made there. This will sound like a seminar in graduate school, but we all need to think about this for a moment. What are the attributes of a state required so that the state and the society, the government, can function successfully? Maybe not perfectly, but function successfully. One of them is a broad acceptance of a national narrative, of the national myth. Now, we all, at this point in 2023, are aware of the flaws of the John Wayne framework of America's story. There have always been counter stories and truths that are profound, true, and tragic because overlooked or suppressed and or denied and all that. That is absolutely true. However, because there was at least a coherent narrative, a coherent structure to shape the debate and the purpose, theoretical, ostensible, however imperfect, the state could function. The second thing is that you have to have institutions that are accepted to function. And if you don't have, if you have fundamental debates on the national narrative, you can't have a coherent society. You can contest blacks were oppressed, to say the least. Yes, but if you say, or choose the issue, the border should only let in white people. I mean, this would be outrageous. But unless there is something cohering, then you have disaggregation. Why has this occurred? The second important thing, which seems to be vitally important in how this breakup of enough consensus to function has occurred, is technological. And it's in the last 30 years. There are many other important factors, but that is with the increase of, just take the internet, of choice. You think this is an increase in freedom, opportunity, all true, but it also means that everyone becomes an authority. My opinion is as valid as yours. That's one of the essential directions in which democracy tries to move. But when that happens, the Tinker, Tailor, and Candlestick makers' views on nuclear weapons are as valid as Henry Kissinger's. Donald Trump's are as valid as President Lincoln's. And that also leads to chaos, much more likely being the case. These are profound phenomena that are destabilizing America, but every other society on earth. And my last statement, I've always said, which sounds surprising, that the phenomena that led to the creation of Osama bin Laden are quite similar to the phenomena that has led to the rise of Donald Trump. And it's a response to increasing disaggregation of any coherent national narrative, challenges of authority, which leads to the destruction, or at least the inefficiency increasing of institutions. We're living a profound moment.
I'll just add to that. I think the internet, yes, but two things. Social media, with its filter bubbles and echo chambers, has meant that you only see stuff that you like. And so if you like football, you watch highlights of Pele, then Johan Cruyff shows up. And then after that, someone else shows up, and you're sucked into that world. And that's not so dangerous, although it's taking away time from other stuff. It's an attention economy. They have to keep you on their platforms for as long as possible, suck out your data, and then sell ads to you. Now, if you're watching a far-right speech and you get sucked into that world. And on Facebook, all your friends are saying the same thing. And you have WhatsApp group where you are sending all sorts of stuff. And it's called the University of WhatsApp in India, where all kinds of rumor mongering goes on. And it's the same in every other country. Then you have this extraordinary polarization and fragmentation. And this leads to, frankly, an inability to people to even have discourse, because people live in parallel universes and they can't agree on facts, forget reason. So we are living in a profoundly critical moment. This is almost like we're reverting back from the written word to a more pictorial word as well with Instagram. It's almost we are going back to the Middle Ages with miracle and morality plays being conducted in front of churches and people drawing their lessons from there. This has dangers not just for the US, as we've said, but for all democracies. And this is why we say, and our second podcast, I think, was on democracy, if not the first, this podcast series called The Dialectic. And democracy is in danger. And the fragmentation that you see in the Republican Party, there's a real risk of that coming to the Democratic Party very soon, and over Israel and Palestine. I'm meeting young Democrats who are deeply unhappy with Joe Biden because they think that Joe Biden has sold out to Israel. Joe Biden is backing an illegal, genocidal regime. They're ideologically dug in. And the Democrats themselves might have to go through, not to the same degree of civil war that the Republicans are going through, but to a similar process of fragmentation. And that is really worrying for American democracy, because that means that forget the nation as a whole, even the political parties would be at war with each other. William Butler Yeats had a great word, and mind you, he lived through a turbulent period in Irish history, and he said, things fall apart, the center cannot hold. And that is a real danger for many, many, many societies.
A truth can be imperfect or untrue, but if it is generally accepted, then there can be social and political cohesion. But when there is no truth, then you can't have really any consensus, and it functioning coherently as a society or as institutions becomes what we are witnessing in the Republican Party of the United States Congress right now.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.